In this video, I want to start having a look at parabolas and what their graphs look like. So we're going to use this program called GeoGebra, and we're going to use it so that we can manipulate our equations and see what effect the different numbers in our equations have on what our graph looks like. So the first thing I want you to do is press on this button here that says slider, and just over in the corner here somewhere, press. Now our slider is going to be named A, and we want it to have a minimum value of -10 and a maximum of 10. So change those, press apply, and this slider will appear up here. So if we grab that, we can change the value of A between anywhere between 10 and -10. So we'll just put it back at 1 there for a second. Now we want a second slider, so we'll just press underneath here. We're going to call this slider C, and we're going to have it going with those same boundaries, so from -10 to 10, and press apply. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to write an equation of a parabola. So our parabola is going to have an equation of y equals a times x squared. So you're going to have to press shift 6 to get that little up arrow thing there, and then squared, plus c. So in there, our a and our c, they're just numbers, but we're using our sliders to determine what those numbers are. So if we press OK, I'm just going to move this slider down so that it's at 0 for a second. Alright, so we've got this black curve here. So that's our parabola that at the moment is represented by the equation just y equals x squared. So that equation there. So this is the most basic parabola that you can have. So I want to play with these sliders and see what the different numbers do. So this a, remember, was the coefficient of that x squared term. So if our a is 1.1, then our equation is y equals 1.1 x squared. So keep an eye on this equation over here, but also see what's happening to our graph as we increase that number. So as that number gets bigger and bigger, you can see our parabola is getting skinnier. And as we come back towards 0, it sort of flattens itself back out again. So that coefficient of x squared tells us about how steep our parabola is. So the bigger the number, the steeper it is. The closer it gets to 0, the flatter it gets. So that's at 0.1. So the next, I guess, sort of logical question is, well, okay, what happens if that gets negative? And we'll have a look at that. We're going to drag it down. So this coefficient is going to be a negative number now. And what happens is that it flips the whole parabola upside down. But it still keeps that same relationship that numbers that are close to 0 are flatter parabolas, whereas as we move away from 0, our parabola gets steeper and steeper. Now what we call it if it's going up this way, that's what's called a concave up parabola. So if our coefficient is positive, our parabola is concave up. If our coefficient is negative, our parabola is concave down. Alright, so that's what the coefficient of x squared does. That's what the number at the front does. Let's have a look at what this number c does. So I'm just going to grab this on the line and move it over so we can see it. Alright, so if we grab c now, so when we move it up, we can see that this is affecting the constant term that's on the end of our equation. So we've still got our y equals x squared, but now we have a number added or subtracted from the end. So when that number gets bigger, our parabola is moving up. When our number gets smaller, our parabola is moving down. So the relationship that I hope you can notice is that when this is equal to 0, so when we've just got an equation like y equals x squared, or it doesn't matter what the coefficient is, but if we don't have anything added to the end of that equation, then our parabola has its vertex, so where it turns, its turning point, its vertex is at the origin. So it's at right on 0, 0. When we increase that number, it moves it up. So that vertex moves up. So without that, we've got a +1 on the end of our equation. Then our vertex is now has a y coordinate of 1. So we've now got a y-intercept of 1. If we move it all the way up to 3, there we go, then our y-intercept is 3 now. So our vertex is at 3. And that works if we move it down as well. So here we've got a y-intercept of -1 or -2. So that's if we've got a -2 on the end. So we can see from these what effect these different numbers have on our parabolas. So one moves it up and down, and one tells us the steepness of that parabola.